Recording in progress.
Try an analogy, it's like this. Your right hand. If I touch your right hand, I've touched you. Yes?
Yeah.
If I see your right hand, if you're hiding under a blanket, but I see your right hand, I can see you, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, you are not your right hand, though, are you?
Betul.
Yes.
Bagus nih.
So your right hand is you,
Yeah.
but you are not your right hand.
Betul.
That's right.
That's right.
That's what it's like. So it's your right hand is the same being. It's the same body. It's the same thing. It's just part of you. It's the part that I can see.
Yep. Oh, that's good. Thank you, Joe. I will go back to Basuki again. Pak Kris, Pak Basuki, udah bisa open mic belum? Atau masih?
Iya, kan ada yang mau nanya ya. Jadi nanti gantian ya. Oke, sip.
Ya. Kalau lu udah sepemahaman, lu udah bisa diberkati sama dia.
Oke, the rocks first then. Rock, let's go.
Oke.
Kita kan Atheism sama.
Iya, saya mau tanya Red Judaism. Kapan doktrin tentang Metatron ini ada? Sejak kapan? Apakah sudah ada pada zaman
yang terakhir
sejak kapan
ini ada lalu?
Sejak kapan pemahaman atau penafsiran tentang
Two Powers in Heaven ya?
Metatron ini ada? Apakah sudah ada dari nabi-nabi sebelumnya, ya kan? Atau baru ada?
Tunggu sebentar. Pertanyaan Metatron sebagai Mesias.
Bukan.
Doktrin tentang Metatron. Doktrin tentang Metatron sejak kapan ada? Di dalam
itu aja dulu ya. Oke.
Itu aja dulu. Kayaknya sih tahu gue sebelum Messi 200 atau 300 tahun ya, sebelum Masehi udah ada. Tahu gue. Coba ditanya deh.
Joe, my friend here, Rox, I wanna ask you, which is the doctrine or the theology about Metatron, when is started, or who the one give the teaching like that?
Behold, I am sending my angel ahead of you. Be sure to do everything he says, for my name is in him, and he will not forgive you for your transgressions.
Oh, itu di ayat itu tuh. Yang namaku ada di dalamnya, it means it's Moses then.
Moses, but even before Moses, Hagar goes into the desert. She runs away from Sarah, and El Roy appears.
Pengajaran tentang Metatron itu mulai kapan ada di Judaism, Pak? Itu kayaknya pertanyaannya.
Iya itu. Dia bilang dimulai dari ayat itu.
Udah lama kali lah. Berarti sebelum Musa itu El Roy itu.
Before Moses, yes.
Setelah Abraham El Roy itu.
Orang yang menyatakan itu. Orang yang menyatakan itu pertama kali menafsirkan seperti itu kapan?
Oh, okay. All right. So you the question is, who is the person teach about the Metatron?
Do you want to know who gave him the name Metatron?
No. Who the one teach the Metatron is the Messiah?
Karena sebelumnya itu kan dikatakan Sahapanim, malaikat kehadirannya bukan perwujudan yang lain, melainkan perwujudan Hasem itu sendiri, bukan entitas yang lain kalau Sarhapanim itu. Nah, jadi Metatron ini apakah dia itu disembah sebagai entitas yang berbeda daripada Hasem itu sendiri gitu? Itu pertanyaan selanjutnya.
Enggak. Kalau itu gue jawab aja enggak. So my friend Rox want to ask you, is the Metatron you will worship as Hashem, or is separate?
As Rabbeinu Bahya says, we must not separate him from Hashem. He is Hashem.
Yes.
We understand there is a distinction. There is a distinction between your hand and you.
Yeah.
But if I kiss your hand, I've kissed you.
Yeah.
So we are told that we must not exchange. Rabbeinu Bahya said we cannot exchange Metatron for anybody else. If we reject Metatron or exchange Metatron, we have rejected God. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it might be his little finger, it might be his fingernail, but it's still the man. You understand? If I spit on your fingernail, I still spit on you. If I spit on your hair, I still spit on you.
Yeah.
But if I love your hair or kiss your hair, I still kissed you. You see?
Yeah.
It might be the part of you that is really insignificant. You cut off your hair. You cut off your fingernails, but it's still you. So we cannot exchange Metatron. To exchange him or to ignore him or neglect him, as Rabbeinu Bahya tells us, is to reject God. Behind
Recording
the curtain
in progress.
on the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. Why did God give us this example? He gave us this example to teach us something about himself and his servant. The high priest who goes behind the veil on the Holy of Holies represents the Prince of the Presence. Nobody else can go behind the veil. Only the Prince of the Presence can go behind the veil. Only the Prince of Presence can converse with God directly. Right. So that's why the high priest represents the Prince of the Presence, and the Holy of Holies, where nobody goes in and nobody talks to God inside of there. That being inside of there represents God the Father. Who is the being inside of the Holy Holies? That is Metatron. And it is the high priest is just a man. In the same way that Aaron goes into the Holy of Holies and talks to Metatron, in the same way in heaven, Metatron and only Metatron goes behind the veil in heaven and speaks face to face with God the Father. No one else can do that. No other being can do that.
And then only the Metatron can talk to human like us.
Right. So he is the one who, he's the intermediary. He's the one who goes to God and to us. Exactly.
Okay.
The priest can speak to Metatron behind the veil in the holy place. And Metatron and only Metatron can speak to the Father behind the veil in the holy place. That's why we say in Judaism, and that prayer I gave you on Rosh Hashanah, these prayers, there's actually another reference you need to know from Isaiah. It tells us that, let me try and find it for you.
Okay.
He is the one who takes our prayers to God in Judaism. Nobody else takes our prayers to God. Let me find that reference for you.
Okay, while you're doing that, I will ask Rox if he understand. Daniel, lu ngerti nggak yang di ngomongin dia?
Yang awal tadi saya udah paham sih.
Ya udah kalau gitu.
Tapi penjelasan, udah. Makanya saya hanya tanya tentang Sarhapanim tadi.
Tapi gini bro,
bagaimana pemahaman tentangnya?
Jangan lupa juga, ya kan? Jangan lupa juga yang dia bilang begini. Di saat ada orang memegang tangan kamu, dia memegang kamu. Di saat orang meludahi rambut kamu, dia meludahi kamu, kan gitu kan?
Ya.
Ya kan? Tapi ada tapinya. Tapi apakah kamu tangan atau apakah kamu rambut? Bukan. Itu dijawabnya bukan. Itu jadi bro harus clear di situ.
Ya.
Dia sudah menyatakan, apakah Tuhan itu tangan? Bukan. Apakah Tuhan itu rambut? Bukan. Tapi tangan itu Tuhan. Ya. Rambut itu Tuhan. Ya.
Karena dia itu bagian dari kamu, gitu loh.
Ya gitu bro.
Kira gitulah.
Ya, saya paham tentang eksistensi roh itu. Sebab kan Allah ketika berdiam bersekina di dalam tiang awan dan tiang api kan bukan berarti Allah itu api. Tetap dia itu kan sebenarnya ruah kan.
Ya,
Saya pikir ruah itu mengambil wujud malaikat itu.
Iya.
Itu Metatron. Yang api itu itulah Metatron tadi gitu. Mengambil rupa itu.
Betul. Metatron yang mempunyai esens Allah, yang mempunyai asem.
Metatron mengambil rupa api, Metatron mengambil
yang jadi cloud, yang jadi fire in the desert, yes.
Who is really
Pak Tom minta maaf. Pak Tom minta maaf, angkat tangan.
Metatron or Hasem?
Bentar, Pak Tom, angkat tangan. Pak Basuki lagi nunggu.
I didn't hear.
Hang on, maaf banget ya. Oke. The Rock, ada pertanyaan lain nggak? Kalau nggak ke Pak Basuki nih, dari tadi dia udah angkat tangan, mau nanya dia nggak jawab tadi. Hai.
Yang you sembah itu
excuse me for a little while, gentlemen. I have to get to plug my computer, and I'll be back in just 40 seconds.
Karena kalau
sure.
Gini, kalau Metatron itu hanya digambarkan hanya sebagai rambut atau tangan saja, maka dikatakan Hasem bukan tangan, lalu penyembahan itu kan nggak mungkin kepada tangan itu kan?
Itu cuman umpama.
Aku ngerti yang kamu maksud. Itu bicara tentang Trinitarian, Oneness dan Trinitarian dan Oneness. Asal orang yang kejang-kejang aja ya, gue bisa nanyanya.
Ya, gini. Tadi kan dia bedakan bahwa Hasem itu bukan tangan. So berarti penyembahan itu pun berbeda. Itu kan itu api asing sih yang setahu saya ya.
Gini nih.
Itu penyembahan
Daniel.
kepada api asing.
Daniel.
Gimana?
Ada orang kita kasih tanya. Kamu makanan, ya, yang nerima tangan lu nerima nggak?
Oh, tangan itu dia bedakan dengan diri orang itu tadi.
Tapi itu kan lu gitu loh.
Bagian dia bukan gini loh bro.
Gini nanti kita akan tanya
ya, itu kan dia punya analogi. Itu gini juga kita harus proporsional ya kan. Dia kasih analogi, memang analoginya nggak sempurna. Tapi kata bagian itu bukan berarti bisa dipisahkan bro.
Betul, nggak bisa dipisahkan dia.
Lu jangan dibilang begitu ada kalimat begini, begitu ada kalimat apakah Hasem itu tangan? Bukan. Itu bukan berarti terpisah bro.
Iya betul.
Lu jangan langsung pisahkan kalau apakah Hasem itu tangan. Bukan, dijawab bukan. Berarti Hasem itu terpisah dari tangan. Enggak bisa dimaknai begitu. Karena tadi dia premis di awal, seperti yang dibilang Pak Hin, di saat orang memberikan makanan ke lu, yang nerima kan tangan lu. Yang megang tangan lu. Itu yang nerima siapa? Ya siapa? Itu kan dianggap lu yang nerima. Walaupun yang megang tangan lu.
Pertanyaan terakhir.
Pertanyaan gue ngerti yang dimaksud. Nanti gue bisa-bisakan.
Makanya gue one by one please, one by one.
One question.
One more question.
Ya Rock, gue ngerti maksud lu Rock. Karena kamu tak.
Tunggu Pak. Santai lah.
Iya.
Satu pertanyaan lagi. Berapa diri Hasem kalau begitu?
Itu aja.
Iya. Oke.
Udah dijawab one being.
Hang on.
Nanti gue bisa tanyain yang lu punya maksud itu. Gue bisa nanyain.
Oke.
Iya, si Rejudaism-nya lagi tarik nafas dulu. Bentar. Rejudaism-nya lagi tarik nafas.
Ya, tenang dulu ya, sabar.
Pak Tom angkat tangan Gi, Pak Tom, lu kan mau tanya, angkat tangan Pak Tom.
Oke.
Jadi aku lah ya, kalau aku tanya
dulu. Kamu dulu. Boleh kamu dulu.
Oke. Joe, are you back yet?
Bukan ke Joe, bukan ke si Joe.
Hah?
Tanya Bro Langit dulu.
Ya, silakan.
Ya, okay.
Ya. Tadi Bro Langit sudah tanya 2 pertanyaan Bro Langit.
Ya, nanti kita kasih rekamannya, Pak. Sudah jelas gitu.
Oke, singkatnya apa Bro Langit?
Iya,
yang saya bilang, Pak.
Sama
Jewish
Recording in
philosophy
progress.
from the 1st century in the Hasmonean language of the Holy Land. The idea that Jesus of Nazareth, who is mentioned in these 1st century Jewish writings, the idea that he's the Messiah is obvious to us, that there were many people who believed that Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah in the 1st century. But we don't, in Judaism, it is not considered that this belief continued very long. It's considered that because the 1st century passed and the kingdom of heaven was not established on earth, you know, the final rule would not come. The 2nd century passed and it still didn't happen. There was a point of time until the year 135 where, and especially around the year 135, everybody would have still thought it maybe Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah in Judaism. Maybe everybody could have thought that. This is obvious because Jesus of Nazareth was a prophet anyway, and he predicted the destruction of Jerusalem, which came true in the year 135 when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem completely. And people like Rabbi Akiva thought that Bar Kokhba was actually the return of Jesus of Nazareth. Okay, they thought that Bar Kokhba was Jesus of Nazareth coming back, and he was going to rule. Then when Bar Kokhba failed to establish a kingdom, at that point, it's considered that many Jews decided, the whole thing was just a hoax. So we acknowledge that the history of the 1st century is that there are plenty of Jews who believed that Jesus of Nazareth might have been the Messiah and was coming back soon. And when his prophecy came true and Jerusalem was destroyed, this was a big sign. So, but many Jews thought that Bar Kokhba was Jesus returned, the Messiah was going to come and establish his kingdom. It didn't happen. Meanwhile, other disciples of Jesus of Nazareth who recognized the sign, because you know what happened when before the destruction of Jerusalem in 135, before the destruction of Jerusalem in 135, there was a sign. The Roman emperor established exactly an idol of Zeus and started to sacrifice pigs in 135. This is a repeat of what happened in the Maccabees when the Maccabees were fighting against. The same thing happened again in 135. The same thing. So when the disciples saw that, you know, what they thought, this is the abomination of abominations standing where it should not stand, they ran away from Jerusalem and went to the hills. They went to Petra, they went to the desert, they went to the hills. Okay, and many Jews thought that this was treachery. It's like, you abandoned us. If you had stayed and fought with us, then we could have defeated the Romans. That's the attitude. So there was a bad feeling began between some Jews and some of the disciples of Jesus, began in the year 135, and it started with somebody called Rabbi Akiva. Akiva is the one, because he was a believer, and he thought that Bar Kokhba was Jesus, and Bar Kokhba turned out not to be Yeshua Sar HaFanim, and he was very bitter about this, and so he had a negative feeling towards the people who still believed that Jesus of Nazareth was Yeshua Sar HaFanim.
Wow, what a long history.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are some new interesting points for me, bro. Yeah.
No problem.
Let me make it more clear again. I want to ask you about first centurion. Yeah.
Yes.
My question is, are there any great difference between, let us say, Paul the apologetic, and let us say the Church of yang di ini
James
yang tiap hari itu membahas Alkitab tuh, jemaat apa itu?
Baik Cuci.
I ask you,
yes.
Are there any great differences between the Judaism, as you said before, in first century, if we compare to daily life or faithful life on the church in the beginning, in the first century? Because this is a new thing for me, especially for me. So it makes me wonder and a little bit strange.
Right. Okay, so we have. It is different. It's going to be a very different way of looking at things, because you're going to look at things through the eyes of Judaism and a Jewish, as if you are a Jew looking at what's happening in your country in the first century. So what's happening with Paul and the church in Jerusalem and the Herodians and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, really all of this is just what we can say internal conflict between Jews, and the whole thing is Judaism. And when they talk about the church, you would not be understanding this as a new thing. This is actually, the word in Hebrew is edah, okay, and it simply means the Jewish community, as opposed to the Romans. So the edah is distinct from the Romans. So the whole thing is about the Jewish community. It's got nothing to do with a new religion. It's got nothing to do with a new movement. It's just about trying to understand these deep and meaningful teachings of this man from Nazareth. Was he the Messiah? Anyway, even if he wasn't the Messiah, his teachings are great. Let's have a look in those teachings. Let's examine those teachings. Some group says that this is the case. He was a prophet. Some case say he was actually Messiah. He's coming back. Some people say he's God. And everybody's got a bit of a fight going on about it. The Pharisees say he's one of them. The Sadducees say that he's a heretic. So everybody's got a different opinion. And they're all discussing his teachings, and they're all discussing various teachings, not just his teachings. Even if they're not discussing his teachings, they're discussing ideas which were floating around at that time, which are discussed by Philo before Jesus talked. He talks about the Logos, for example. He talks about Metatron. So they're talking a lot about Metatron. They're talking a lot about these things. Jesus said, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." This is, Hillel said this before Jesus. And so this is an important discussion which is going on inside of Judaism. So all of this is understood as something is happening in Judaism. Like you can try to imagine today, if we put it in today's context, everybody is involved in like apologetics against Islam. And you've got Rob Christian, you've got Jay Smith, you've got Murad, you've got, I don't know, Christian Prince, I didn't think I mentioned him. You've got Sam Shamoun, you've got David Wood, you've got me, and we've all got different approaches, but we're all talking about the same thing. Some people say, oh, I prefer David Wood. Some people say, I prefer Red Judaism. Some people, they have different preferences. There are camps starting to form, but we're not fighting each other. We have just got different opinions. If you ask me my opinion on some of them, I might say, well, I think this person or that person is an idiot. Or, for example, I might say that I don't believe that Thomas Alexander is qualified to speak on this matter. He's just a boy who's interested in computer studies, and he has 2 years of interest in this field. I don't think he has any qualifications, and he makes a lot of mistakes. So, but we're all together as one movement. Yeah. So that's the same way you have to understand first century Judaism. There is a lot of opinion. There are people who disagree with Jesus. There are people who agree with Jesus. There are people who agree with part of what Jesus has said. There are people who say, well, no, Jesus is saying the same thing as Hillel. Jesus is saying the same thing as Philo. And so there's a general movement about it, and there are camps developing. Do you understand?
Yeah, I can get a few of your points from your narration. But I want to ask again, don't be tired. As you said before, in the first century, Jewish people read or try to learn about New Testament. And you said before that Christian New Testament same with Jewish New Testament. Is that right?
The New Testament is Jewish writings. Therefore, so now there's a mistake in what you said. In the first century, people didn't try to learn about the New Testament, because that would be like saying people were trying to learn about the Talmud while the Talmud was being written. It's not true. Nobody was studying the Talmud while the Talmud was being written. You understand? So likewise, nobody was studying about the New Testament while the New Testament was being written. But there were lots of people who wanted to get their opinion into the New Testament. You understand? And some of them are accepted, and some of them were not accepted. And that's the 27 books. And some of them we know are historical, 27 books plus Philo plus Josephus. And some of them we don't think are historical. For example, the Gospel of Thomas, for example, or the Proto-Evangelion of James. We don't know if this is historical. So, but there have been a lot of people trying to get their opinion into the to write their opinion down and to make sure that their opinion was accepted.
Okay. Yeah. I agree that all of us in the same movement, yeah, even we are standing in a different position, but it's no problem for me. And
yeah,
I ask again, so forward in the first century, in the first century, Jewish people
sebagian ya
read about the New Testament forward because
baru ku tahu ada firman
based
Tuhan
on
hanya khusus
the New
untuk zaman dulu
Testament
dan zaman
from Christian
sekarang.
version,
Sebagian
or we call it
baru ku
Holy
dengar.
Bible or what, something like that, ya.
Pelin-pelan namanya,
It teaches
pelin-pelan.
us about
Begini,
Jesus, about his
sampean
lesson,
jangan memframing ya.
about his daily
Kalau saya
life,
katakan goblok,
about his promise, about related to the next life after death, something like that, yeah. And we read again, and we read too that Jewish people, especially Sanhedrin, or another group of Jews, no problem for me, deny and I ask again to Jesus. So that's why the first centurion, so that's why the first century Jewish people
sebagian ya
cross the New Testament forward because
baru ku tahu ada firman
based
Tuhan
on
hanya
the
khusus
New
untuk zaman
Testament
dulu dan zaman
Christian
sekarang.
version,
Sebagian.
or we